Okay, welcome everybody to the second of our autumn art lectures this year. Television, a very public art. Just a very quick couple of things to say before we start. One is if you've got your mobile phones, please put them on mute or turn them off. If you need the toilets are down the main stairway. When you get to the bottom of the stairway, the toilets are on the right-hand side. If there is a fire, an unlikely event, there are fire exits. Basically, the one at the back is the one to go for, and I will direct people out of the back, and we will go down outside front of the building. I'm sure everything will be fine. I think that is it, apart from thanking once again the Faculty for Arts, Law and Social Science who support this event. And then I'm going to hand over to Sara, who is the chair for this evening.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I've never been to these before, so if you guys say what, just forgive me, okay? And we'll see what's what. So, I'm Sara Gibbings, and welcome to the second of the series of Autumn Arts Lectures. Thank you so much to Peter and Ellen for asking me to come this. I'm really, really excited to be talking to these two brilliant filmmakers, Michael Jenkins and Harcourt. So tonight we're looking at the art of factual TV, and just as a quick reminder, this is an extremely broad church, okay? There is literally something for everyone. I hope you're all watching loads of it all the time. So I'm a producer and an executive producer and a former head of production for 4 movie channels in Spain. And I've had the good fortune over more than 20 years to film amazing creatives and crew and on-screen talent from presidents to pop stars and Hollywood A-listers to amazing athletes like Beckham and Ronaldo, and both Ronaldos. And last year I was really fortunate to get a job here in the Department of Film and Television at the University of Bristol, which I absolutely love. So thank you so much to my colleagues and students coming tonight. That's absolutely brilliant. Before we start, I have a confession to make. I am nuts about Factual. I mean, nuts. I love making it, and I love watching it. And this is going to sound tragic, and thank God I'm not in the dating pool, but my first ever experience of Factual TV, my first memory of Factual TV, is watching Panorama. I would sneak out of bed and go to the top of the stairs and sneak out and watch it. I don't know if you remember it back then, it's still like an hour long. And the music terrified me, but I was captivated. And I remember just watching it and staring back up into my bed, and in my head, interviewing Arthur Scarlett, Michael Basham, who also terrified me, and kind of doing that again night after night to get myself to sleep. And I can guarantee you that that experience has informed not only my educational choices, but my career choices. So it's not an exaggeration to say that Factual TV is kind of everything to me. So tonight we're going to talk about the art of Factual TV with Tim Harcourt and Michael Jenkins. So can you give them a very warm Bristol welcome? Right, one of you pick up that mic then, please. How are you both?
Good.
Yeah, are you well?
Yep.
Okay. Right, I have amazing, okay, so these intros are going to take a little bit because these guys have done so much. So Michael Jenkins is an award-winning writer, producer, director based here in Bristol. I think you're what we call a human Swiss Army knife. You can do it all. You create and you develop and you shoot and you edit and you also teach. And you also straddle factual and scripted, which is not something that most people can do. Normally we're told to get in a lane and stay in a lane, and that's about it. And you have done things for BBC and Channel 4 and Apple TV Plus and BFI. And your short films have won too many awards, I can't even list them. How did you get started? Like what fed you? What fed you to get started?
Oh, that's a really, really good question. So, I mean, as far as what fed me to get started, I think I grew up in a household where there was always music playing. and always horror films playing as well. I grew up watching horror films, probably a bit too young, but I think for me it was I just was really passionate about telling stories, and I started off through music. That was my sort of creative output, and because of that, we needed to make music videos. So, like out of necessity, I sort of picked up my dad's camera and started making music videos, and that was the first time I realized, oh, I actually really love making stuff and being visual with things. And I think my sort of journey into documentary came through community radio. So I worked at local community radio stations here in Bristol, BCFM and Ujima, as a volunteer. And through that, I learned about the sort of radio hour and how to sort of format structure sort of stories and things like that. And making radio documentaries was my sort of first step, and then moving into doing documentaries. And it was really out of the fact that there were so many people in Bristol that I thought, well, these guys are amazing characters. Why don't I know about these people? I want to tell their story. Their story should be told. So instead of crying about the fact that none of our stories are actually on the screen at that time, I was just like, you know what, I'm going to be the change that I want to see, and actually pick up the camera, and I'm going to go and tell these stories. And that's sort of how I've evolved.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, well, we're going to get on to much more detail about some of your shows in a minute. But first, let's look at this. Tim maybe hit Factory Harcourt, which is pretty great. Tim is a producer, EP, and a great job title, Chief Creative Officer at Studio Lambert, which is a hugely successful production company here in the UK, which is under the All3 Media umbrella. And you're you've kind of developed some of the most loved shows in the UK, including Gogglebox, The Circle, Race Across the World, and Traitors. And thank you all for coming tonight. I know, I'm sure you're going to go and watch back as soon as you guys get home. But these formats have travelled everywhere, and so much so that they've actually just become part of our cultural DNA. But you must have started somewhere. You mustn't have started at the top. Tell us how you got started.
Yeah, no, but by the way, Traitors is a Dutch format, so I was lucky enough to have the rights to that, to pitch that. So it's sadly not one that I or my companies develop, but we make it. Yeah, I did start somewhere. I started, like a lot of people in TV, by making tea. I mean, I watched a lot of television at university. That's probably what I spent most of my time doing, rather than actually doing my degree.
Don't tell the students that.
And then I was desperate to get into television, and then I did a mixture of jobs for a couple of years, but then finally I got offered to help make Tonight with Trevor McDonald, which was at that time a sort of a flagship ITV Granada show. We were doing a recreation of the trial of Barry George, who was accused of killing Jill Dando, and so we were filming it at the time that the trial was on, and turning it around for transmission once the verdict came out. And obviously, he was found guilty then, and subsequently he's been exonerated. But and what I did there was I swept the floor, I took stills of the set, I made a lot of tea. I was just made myself available because I was so desperate to get my foot in the door of television. So I'd sweep up at the end of the day. I'd do anything and everything I could just to sort of be noticed as I think I was about 24 at the time. And then one of the production managers just said, "Oh, I'm going on to This Morning," which is still on as a daytime magazine show. I'm going on to This Morning after this. Do you want to come and be a runner on that? And I said, yes, that'd be absolutely great. And I turned up for work there that summer, and Richard and Judy, who were presenting it, announced about 2 days later that they were leaving. And I thought, oh God, I've just joined a sinking ship. And I sort of worked my way, this was 2001, and I just sort of worked my way through there for a year. It was a really great place to learn how to, make TV, to tell stories, because that's what making factual TV is about. It's about telling stories. Because you're turning things around, you're making live television, you'd be shooting films, little 4 or 5 minute films, and then cutting them in a way that you wouldn't perhaps another factual television, because it was so ephemeral and expendable, that sort of daytime television, and they needed like an hour and a half every day, that you actually got to throw your hand at a lot of things. Some things that didn't work, and people would go, well, forget about it, tomorrow's another day.
Yeah.
And some things that did. So, and from there, I sort of was by then I was a researcher in TV, and I was bitten by the bug.
Yeah. But I mean, having a live TV experience so young, I mean, that's pretty hardcore training ground.
Yeah, doing live is. I always say about people who come to me now, if they've done live, I think, oh, you can do TV that's not live really easily. You can deal with the pressure of, coming up with things on the hoof. It's a lot harder to step across the other way. It's not impossible, of course, but you do learn a lot by doing live. And a lot of people talk about the buzz you get from doing live television, and I'm sure it's why people love doing sport as well, beyond being sport fans. But yeah, it's a really great place to learn. But the Big Breakfast was another huge magazine show in those days, where a lot of the talent you see, coming through to the people who made sort of like Borat and Ali G and all that, they all came through Big Brother. A lot of people that ran Channel 4 in the 90s and the noughties all came through. Sorry, not Big Brother, but the Big Breakfast. So that was another learning ground for people. These were incredible learning grounds for people to come and actually show what they could do at quite a young age. And it's quite sad, actually, that this morning still exists, but there's not many of those shows that exist anymore. There's not the appetite or the money to make them.
Yeah, even on the scripted side, there are things like, doctors and those kind of things where people can cut their teeth and really learn their craft. It's harder.
Yeah,
So much harder.
exactly. And daytime's a great place to learn as well. I mean, a lot of people who make traces, for example, a lot of the people who make the shows that we make in my company, they all came through daytime, because you're just having to make a lot of decisions very quickly. You've got small budgets. You really learn to be economical. So, I think a lot of people might think, oh, I'd love to work on Traitors or some of these huge shows. But actually, you can learn so much just, jumping in at the deep end and working on these shows with very restrained budgets, where you'll actually be asked to do a lot.
Yeah, I agree. And Michael, can I just ask you, I mean, so many people think, scripted is just everything, right? And that if you do scripted, that's it, you're just brilliant. I actually think being able to do a good factual is actually harder sometimes. And you are kind of doing both. Are you leaving us poor factuals behind to go and work on your fancy scripted then?
No, I think for me it was having that training ground. I did I was doing documentaries myself, and then eventually I did one for the for the police. They commissioned me to do one, and it was about stop and search and how when it's done disproportionately against black males, how it affects them, and it was going to be used as a training tool for the police. And and during that process, while I was making the film, I actually ended up getting stopped and searched myself, which was obviously ironic. But I think for me, and obviously I had to argue with the police about that as well, whether or not to include it. But I think for me, that was that really showed me how powerful, factual filmmaking can be, and showing those real lives and those real life people and how they're affected by the systems and that we live in. I think it's such a powerful medium. And that training ground that I had at the BBC as well, when I did some current affairs working on Inside Out, it's really, telling stories, telling those. It's a delicate process when you're dealing with individual characters, and I feel like there's a time and a place. So for me, telling stories, whether that's through documentary or through scripted, the medium, the story will dictate the medium for me. So, I've got ideas where I've got a character that it's great as a documentary, but it might be more engaging as a narrative piece.
Yeah.
So it just for me it depends. Yeah, for me it depends.
Yeah. Well, shall we take a look at some of this brilliant work and let me see if this actually plays?
Nope.
Thank you very much. I knew there'd be a glitch in this somewhere. Thank you so much. Oh, amazing. Looks so good. Isn't it really exciting? Yeah. I get such a kick of seeing Bristol in that. It's really good. Did you ever think about just going to London instead? Why did you stay in Bristol?
I mean, I think for me, I'm from Bristol. This is my hometown, and there was lots of stories I wanted to tell here, and nobody was doing it, so I could just sort of sustain a living by doing it. So I didn't really feel like I needed to go to London. I guess like that changes. I mean, it's not just London. It's like Birmingham and Leeds. There's other places, that the industry is in as well. And I don't want to leave Bristol.
Yeah.
So I'm here, I'm here because I want to tell stories here and base stories here as well, and just give a voice to those regional voices, which is missing. Whether that is through factual or through scripted. I mean, being based in the regions is really important for me because, I want to reflect our community here.
Yeah, I mean, and we are looking at TV as a public art, and we do have to represent the whole country, but it's commissioners don't always want to take a risk on stories that they don't necessarily already know, and sometimes they don't take a risk on regional stories or black stories. Is it getting better?
That's a big question. Is it getting better? I mean, in some aspects it is, in some aspects it's getting worse. I think, the industry is going through a bit of a state of flux at the moment. These stories are really, obviously, people are risk averse, in this industry, very much so. And they could be seen as riskier stories to tell. But I feel like you need to tell those stories because as the demographics of the country change, I think it's important that we're all still reflected and people do see themselves on the screen. And that's part of the impetus of me actually picking up the camera and deciding to tell stories, was because, I wasn't happy with what I was always seeing on TV. It was always negative. So I thought, okay, I want to do something different. And it's really important for everybody to get a better understanding about everybody that lives in the country. It's a disservice if these stories are not told, because then people around the country will not know about the people that actually live here.
Yeah, totally. Well, we'll all work on that. Hopefully some of the students here will stay in Bristol and keep making brilliant films. Shall we have a look at Tim's reel as well?
You think you know how this game works? You don't.
I am a traitor.
Traitors, what are you like?
People do a whole lot worse for a whole lot less.
Look at that.
Things are about to get mad. Less teeth, much less teeth.
I'm not watching anymore.
Who shot him? Him! Wow, that's a big sausage.
Amazing, amazing. So good. So, Tim, obviously very impressive titles in there. Can you talk us through maybe one of the first ones that you did? Because I think everyone would really kind of like to understand the creative process as well. Like maybe Gogglebox or anything you want to chat about.
Yeah, sure. I'll talk about Gogglebox a bit. I mean, the part that I took in TV, I sort of made quite a lot of TV, and then I stepped quite exclusively into development, which is, and specifically trying to create formats, entertainment or factual entertainment formats. And when I was head of development at Studio Lambert, which I joined, it was quite a small company. It made a show called Undercover Boss and Four in a Bed when I joined it. But one of the very first things I came up with when I joined Studio Lambert was during the London riots. I had noticed that, you know, we were all sat at home and we were all talking about the news and reacting to it. And I had a notion which was, gosh, wouldn't it be amazing if we had rigged cameras in people's living rooms whilst they reacted to the news, because different people would be saying different things in different places about what was happening at the time, which was sort of quite a lot of like civic unrest and disorder. And so I thought about that notion for a while and sat on it, and you know, eventually I thought, well, just families or groups of people or couples talking about news might be a bit limiting. What if they're talking about news and fun, entertainment, TV and drama and all those things? And so I worked on this idea. I think it's called 242 Minutes. Not a great title, is it? Which was at the time the average amount of TV that a person watched a day. So this was 2012. And so at Studio Lab, I went into Channel 4 and pitched this idea. And I sort of said, no, I didn't have a reel or anything. I just had the idea. And I sort of said, you know, you always ask us what the national conversation is, but and I don't know what it is, but I know where it takes place. It takes place in front of the TV. And pitch the show as you kind of see it today, really. And it was a really interesting process. I mean, and it sort of, I suppose it shines a light on how sort of how close a run, you know, close a run thing TV can be, and that you need a champion for somebody's got money to be able to realise these things. And I was very lucky at that time. There was a chap in the room called David Glover who worked for Channel 4, and he now runs a company called 72 Films who make great documentaries. And he loved the idea, and he said, I'll give you 50 or 60 grand to make a tape to prove that this stupid, ridiculous idea that everyone in the building thought was a bit crazy would work. So I went away and, you know, gathered a team with me, you know, the executive producer, who then went on to make it. And we went out casting for people to realise this vision of the show, including one pair of people who worked in the original cast, which was Leon and June, who are both dead now, sadly. And so we made a tape. I think it was about 15 minutes long, and it was very funny. And I always thought it was a bit of a comedy as well as some like revealing sort of light upon the different social class structures in Britain. There were some great people in it actually who refused to be in the first series as well. And we just went back to Channel 4 and they commissioned 4 episodes, and everyone in the building thought, oh, this is a bit risky and a bit stupid. And it went out, and it didn't do very well at all at first, actually. It was, people were saying, you know, this is the end of civilization. People watch TV. But it sort of, it built up a bit of momentum in those first 4 episodes, and then the channel sort of saw the green shoots of, I suppose, growth in it, and then bought the second series, which was around 13, and then it sort of grew into the phenomenon that you see today. So that was sort of a journey of a notion, an idea, but I think a lot of things were important in there. I mean, you've got to have this sort of a cultural midwife of sorts, a champion, a patron, somebody who can, you know, believe in that idea and take a risk on it, and which this person did. And then you need, for the stuff I make, you need a big team of talented people doing great work. You know, the people, you know, you can't be, you know, there's a team in with each family filming them. There's a casting team who have to find the families. You're so reliant on this huge team of people, brilliant people, to make, you know, what could be something pretty awful into something brilliant.
Can I ask, what is like a typical week's schedule? I mean, you don't have to give away the secret sauce, but like, what is a typical week?
Typically, I think we film between about 12 and 14 houses in a week. We normally are filming Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, sometimes on Tuesday. That's like the cut-off for when we finish filming on Gogglebox. And through the pandemic, actually, we were able to film it by putting robo cameras in people's living rooms. So that's sort of what we use now. And there's a team at each house. Normally it's 3 people, and they show a range of programs and clips or moments from some programs, but whole programs otherwise. So it might be a sporting moment or a funny moment, or they might watch a whole episode of something, depending on the commitment or the time commitment of the family or the couple. And then all that footage is taken back to London, and we have about 12 edit suites that work sort of throughout the day and sometimes into the night, sort of cutting that material down, but into packages, what we call packages. Each program is a package, and it's normally between sort of 5 and 8 or 9 packages in a program. So that gets cut in what we call quick turnaround edit suites, basically.
Very quick.
And then it all moves towards one final edit suite on the Wednesday night, the finished suite it's called, and there's a lot of finished suites in this sort of unscripted TV that we make. Well, not necessarily the best storyteller edits, but like the most technically proficient editors who can do sort of amazing pacing and polishing and music, so that what you watch is sort of, you know, slips down easily. Let's just say they bring. I think they bring like more than like the last sort of 20% to what is up to that point quite a rough cut. And then on the Thursday morning, the channel will come in and watch it, and there'll be a lawyer there to comply, because obviously there's normally people, you know, saying something contentious or criticising someone or committing slander. And it will go through one more set of notes on the Thursday, and then on the Friday it literally gets up-resed into what's called the online. I'm sure you all know what that is, but that's when the low resolution picture is, you know, turned into high resolution picture. It goes through a quick mix, and then it's delivered to Channel 4. Normally it's sort of 6 or 7 in the evening. Sometimes I think we've had to play out straight from the edit suite because it's been so late to deliver, which is, you know, always nerve-wracking. So it's sort of been played out, you know, I think on about a 5-minute delay to what's transmitted. And then you know, Friday is the quiet day for most of the team. And then they're sort of back on the road again. It's it's a bit of a lifestyle for the people who are, you know, so you could be like filming in Hull for 13 weeks or whatever, and that's kind of, you're with the family there, and maybe the family in Newcastle, and, you know, maybe the family in York or whatever. You've got a range of families that you film with across those 3 or 4 days.
And I don't think people realise just the amount of hours it takes to make an hour of telly like that.
Yeah.
It's huge.
I know. I mean, people always say, "Oh, it looks really cheap," and I always love what Dolly Parton says. It takes a lot of money to look this cheap, and I feel that way a lot about Gogglebox.
God bless Dolly. God bless Dolly. And what about you, Michael? So, I mean, obviously, from all the things we've seen on your reel, like, can you talk us through one of your shows from kind of like conception, kind of through? And again, if you're here in Bristol, like, are you able to take more time to get to know your contributors? How do you like to approach that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, time is like, obviously time is money, but when you're doing Factual and when you're sort of telling the types of stories that I'm trying to tell, you need to give it that time with the characters, with the main sort of people that you're telling the story for. So that's really important. And I mean, luckily I did a documentary for the BBC about St. Paul's Carnival, which is you know, which is an amazing event that usually happens in Bristol every year. But to do that, to tell that story, like, I mean, I already knew a lot of the people in the community that were part of it. So I was already sort of embedded, and people could trust that I would tell the story faithfully, like, you know, and that is really important, is to, you know, building that trust, because they are, you know, putting their story in your hands, and, you know, it's a responsibility to do it justice. But at the same time, you've got to create jeopardy and things like that in TV, and, you know, so it's a fine line. But I feel like, you know, to keep my integrity, it's all about just being true to the cast or the main character. I think that's the crux of it for me. And being in Bristol, or if I'm telling a story like a local story, then being here is just a lot better, because I can spend more time with people, and in different scenarios as well, I can just bump into people and have conversations where it's a lot less formal. Yeah, and when you're making those sorts of films, the characters have got to feel like they know you and can trust you. So building that trust is what it's all about.
I mean, and it's hard won and easily lost.
Of course, yeah, and it can be,
Yeah.
yeah, it can definitely be easily lost, especially when, and I'm talking to people that already have a fear about how their story, how they're going to be represented. They already have that fear already. So there's a lot more work you've got to do to get them on board.
I know. When I was going to make Welcome to Wrexham, we were just starting and no one wanted to really take part because they'd seen Sunderland Till I Die. And they were like, no, we don't want to do that. It took us months and months and months of just like eating a lot of pastry with people and a lot of cups of tea. So we could kind
Yes,
of get in there.
lots of tea and coffee, definitely.
Totally. Tonight is not only the final of Celebrity Traitors, but it is also the start of another season of Celebrity Race Across the World. I love this show. Like, I love it so much. Can you talk a little bit about how that came about?
Sure. And that came around in a different way to Gogglebox. So Gogglebox was very much an idea in my head, and you know, I went away and pitched it for Race Across the World, the original Race Across the World. The BBC had said, "Oh, we're interested," maybe to 3 or 4 companies, that they said we're interested in doing a competition, a travel competition, or maybe with pairs, maybe with families. So I've got a development team, so I've got about 4 or 5 brilliant men and women who sort of like help brainstorm things or work out the format for things. So as I normally do, I went into a room with them and we sort of started to discuss what that could be. And with a show, you really need a hook or a notion or something, you know, something that's going to, you know, make it work or allow it to unravel. And I mean, the idea that I had for that was, I think I said, "Oh, can you travel from London to Sydney for the price of the airfare without flying?" And that was the start of it. And we started calling it Flightless, it was called at the time. And we thought, oh God, the BBC would love it. It's got green credentials and everything.
Albert, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Albert qualification. And so we went back to the BBC and pitched it. And so that was a, you know, we'd kind of been asked to think in that area, and that was the solution we came up with. But the journey to actually making it was long. They wanted us to send an assistant producer and a production manager who looks after all the finance on our show. They wanted to send them to do the route, and the route we decided on in the end was London to Singapore. And so we gave what I thought at the time was the best job on TV to 2 people who were going to travel from London to Singapore by land with a limited budget. It was hell. It was absolute hell for this pair of people who had to do it, and they were sending videos in like of themselves very upset, let's just say, waiting for a ferry across the Caspian Sea, like frustrated. But there were moments of joy and elation as well, and just meeting all these incredible people across the world, especially across the stans, which, you know, Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, which I felt never seen these on TV. And they were sending these like little video diaries sort of every few days, and we were watching them. So eventually we went to the BBC and said, "Look, this is really good." And they commissioned the series, which was a 6-parter, and it launched and did really well. And then we did the second series, and that launched. And then all of a sudden we're about to make the celebrity version, and people started talking about this, you know, a cold or a virus in China, and we're filming in China, it's going to be fine, don't worry. And next thing we knew, you know, the world shut down and we couldn't make the show. But for 2 years we couldn't make the show. But I suppose the upside of that, if there was an upside to the pandemic, that didn't mean to be clear, but the upside for the show was that that second series went out as everyone was going into lockdown, and it was the route was, I don't remember what the route was now. It was Mexico City to Ushuaia, and the world was locking down, and all of a sudden this was going out in April and May of 2020, and so people were transported by the show. It just became an absolute monstrous hit, so we were lucky in that respect. But I mean, that is an incredibly difficult show to make. It's very, very hard for the teams filming it, the embed producer, directors, and And Michael talked about relationships with people. I mean, these directors, producer directors, and they have an AP with them and a small team of people following them. You know, they fall out, and the trust can be broken, and they're on the road together for 51 days, and that ability to bring a relationship back when you lose it is so difficult. It requires absolute skill and patience, and a certain sort of person to do it. I mean, personally, I wouldn't be able to do it myself.
I mean, it's physically exhausting. I mean, it's also, you can get all kinds of bugs and like you're just eating different food and there's so many things, and the lack of privacy. I mean, I'm not surprised they get cross. I mean, if that was a family trip, I'd be ripping them apart.
Yeah, and on top of that, Race Across the World is very much, you know, it's less sort of formatted and entertainment like something like Traitors. It's very much made in a documentary style, although it is, you know, a formatted show. But we are asking a lot of, we deliberately, you know, cast people who have interesting relationships, sometimes difficult relationships and difficult dynamics in their relationship, and we're asking them for their story to unravel, and also we're quite not controlled, but we don't want them to tell their story on the second day of filming. They're there for 51 days, so you know, I'm sure that the PD has to have sort of awful words like, can you talk about your dying mother, like, you know, in a couple of weeks' time, kind of thing. Now's not the time. It's like it's navigating those relationships and earning trust, as Michael said, so hard.
Yeah, no, totally. And Michael, obviously straddling both factual and scripted. I mean, can you talk, because I know there's some students here in the room as well, it'd be really interesting, you know, the creative skills that translate from one to another. We don't just have to stay in our lane. How transferable are those skills when you're making it on a practical day-to-day basis when you're making films?
I think for me, doing documentaries for so many years and then transitioning into short form scripted and eventually long form has been invaluable, you know, just having an understanding of stories and characters and you know, different sort of lived experiences of people has been has really enabled me to do it, basically. I think and for me, I did a lot of, I mean, I come from the sort of YouTube university where I just picked up a camera and just, you know, started filming stuff and making stuff and learning everybody's role on set, you know, learning the different roles and things like that. And when you're sort of you know, a self-shooting PD, producer, director, you're doing a lot of things. You're doing the audio, you're asking the questions, you know, you're arranging things, you're doing a lot of things. But that was an amazing training ground for when I'm stepping into doing dramas, because I sort of know everybody's role, and I know that and I sort of have a good understanding of character and story beats and what can work, and you know, the emotion, drawing out emotion, I think. And in this, so I guess, like, yeah, you are sort of told to sort of stay in your lane, I think, but you know, in this sort of economy and with the opportunities that are out there, you've got to be able to learn more than one thing. I mean, it's just the way that the game goes. Basically, you've got to have an understanding of it. I mean, as a director, you know, I have an understanding of editing, and that's only because I've been editing music videos, events, editing loads of different things.
And there's nothing worse than being in an edit and realizing you didn't get what you needed.
Exactly. So when I'm directing, I sort of have an understanding of what's needed for the edit. I know this is going to cut. And it's the same when you're doing a documentary. You have to know what shots you're going to be shooting, how you're going to shoot, you know, pausing, letting them finish their sentences, all that sort of stuff that you learn doing documentaries. It's all transferable. I don't like when people get pigeonholed, but I do understand why it's needed, because when I'm crewing up, yeah, I do want this specific person. So it just depends on what type of stories you want to tell. But I would say that you've just got to lean into your strengths, and I feel like that's what I lean into. I mean, I've always been creative, always been making stuff, so it hasn't really been too much of an issue. But I guess when I was having different conversations then with certain people, I'm like, I'm just a director. That's all I do, you know. So that they're clear, that they're confident that I can actually do what I'm saying I can do, you know.
And I know we're talking about Factual. Can you just tell us, like, how good was it working on The Outlaws?
Oh, that was amazing. I mean, it was really funny. And Stephen Merchant, I was sort of shadowing him as a director, and he even gave me some scenes to direct and stuff. And just he was giving me little tips and tricks on how to how to shoot comedy.
So hard.
Yeah, which is completely different from what I'd known. So I learned so much doing that experience and learning. I'd done a lot of shorts before then, where maybe I might have 15, 20 people on set as a crew. When you're stepping into the Outlaws or something like that on the high-end TV sets, you've got 100, 110, 150 people.
And it's good food.
Oh yeah, no, the food is really good. The food is really, I mean, it's really important.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was an amazing experience. But it also did show me and demystify the process that basically, yeah, it's very similar to what I'm doing. It's just a lot more people, but the core HODs are still the core HODs that I need to communicate with and make sure that they know what's going on so that they can feed it back to their team and everybody's on the same page. So it's all transferable.
Yeah. The business side is an inevitable part of any art, but in TV, I think it's something. I was trying to come up with something really clever about how to finance film and TV, and this is all I could come up with because it is absolutely bonkers. And I think you have to be a little bit Mr. and a little bit Miss all the time when you're doing stuff. Like Michael, maybe start off with you first. Like, how easy or hard is it sometimes to get things made?
Oh, it's really, really difficult, No is you get used to the phrase no or the rejection. I think it's all part and parcel of this game. Yeah, raising finance for things, I mean, it is very difficult, but I think so. Before I've done crowdfunders, I've obviously pitched directly to commissioners, and I've worked with organizations or brands to get things made. So yeah, that's the question everybody wants an answer for. Like, how are we going to get things greenlit? I mean, even big, massive production companies are struggling to get things greenlit as well because of the finances and what's going on in the industry. So, yeah, with great difficulty is the answer to that question.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, Tim, and you're in obviously a very big company and under a bigger umbrella as well. I mean, are you guys finding any challenges at the moment with so much in the marketplace, or?
There is a lot of content being made, but buyers are very risk averse, and there's been this sort of huge, like a land grab because of the streamers coming into the world where they want lots of content and they want the best content. So they've been buying a lot of content. Netflix and Amazon, that is in principle more so than Apple. But so that it created like this huge glut of work that was out there, and it's contracting again because these things are slightly cyclical, and people are coming much more risk averse. The ad market, which funds Channel 4 and ITV and all those commercial channels, is completely sort of well, not collapsed, but it's shrunk to a minuscule size. So getting funding for those shows on those commercial broadcasters is very hard. And now that the streamers have decided, we've got lots of content on platform and we've got some hits that are returning, we don't need as much new stuff, they're buying less. So it is having this awful trickle down effect in the industry where, a friend of mine who was an executive producer, successful executive producer up to about 3 years ago, who's training, now working on building site retraining because, the work's just not there for him. So I do think there's always been a natural attrition at the top end of when you get more senior in the game. Some people want to change of career. Parenthood for some people gets in the way. I think that's always been the case, but it's definitely quite bad at the moment.
Yeah.
The BBC's under the microscope, obviously, continually politically, it's under the microscope. The way it's funded is under the microscope, and also they are really chasing sort of younger audiences, harder to reach audiences that are important to the sort of existence in the BBC. So there's just multiple things sort of, I hate the phrase the perfect storm, but there's just like all these things that are going on that are really affecting what's happening. But on the upside, I'd say that people love content, they love watching content. I don't think the love or the desire to watch content short, long, expensive, like less expensive is going to go away. So I don't think that should put anyone off like trying to break into making television or factual programming.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
do you think in a certain way that we are in a golden age of factual? There's certainly a lot of it about.
It's getting better all the time. I think if you go back and watch, in the genre I do, if you go back and watch like the first series of Big Brother, it's glacially slow. It's so boring. At the time, I thought it was just incredible, groundbreaking, revolutionary. So it does age quite bad, a bit like sort of old sports footage. That ages
The shorts,
badly as
the
well.
shorts.
But I think we're in a golden age. I think it's getting better all the time, and our ability to tell stories and connect with audiences is better and has to be better because of attention spans as well. So yeah, I think it's definitely getting better, but there's definitely a glut of content too. So it makes it hard
Yeah.
for you to make decisions about what to watch.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and Michael, what do you think? I think there used to be maybe a certain snobbery around factual. Like, you had to be watching a period drama, or you weren't really watching good telly. I think that's really changed, and I think the streamers have had a lot to do with that as well, with shows like The Last Dance and things like that have just been really amazing storytelling, and they've invested in good documentaries. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think we're? Oh, yeah.
I mean, I feel like it's a really fascinating and interesting and exciting time in TV and film as far as stories that are being told or stories that can be told. I feel like we're, as Tim was saying, with the hunger to watch content hasn't died down. It's only increased, and I think it's just where people actually are choosing to watch their stuff. I think that has changed, or that's evolving, or we need to adapt. TV needs to adapt to that. But I think it's a great time for stuff that we're seeing, and the programs that are being made now it are on completely different levels to what was being made 20 years ago. So it's definitely like got better, and is getting better, and there's still an appetite for it. So I guess it's just the industry fixing itself up to actually put it in a place where there's more of it, and it's more accessible to everyday people.
Exactly, and I think as we can see up there, like there are watch parties for all kinds of things. I think people are just finding different ways maybe to watch, because sometimes I think we're quite siloed and on our phones and with our headphones on, and we're not engaging with people. And this is another way, maybe not necessarily in the cinema, but it's it's a different way of consuming that content.
Yeah.
I have impact-wise, I'm going to argue that I think that factual TV has a massive impact. And these were, and I'm sure you can't see it because I'm not wearing my glasses and I can't see it very well. But the viewing figures recently for like Celebrity Traitors, I mean, that's just from the 3rd of November. I mean, that's massive, a huge amount of people. I mean, how does that make you feel as, are you excited about what could be for audiences,
Yeah, I think it's great. It brings people together, doesn't it? People. It's great when people are sharing a cultural moment and can talk about it, and that happens a bit in sport, but it really does happen as well with stuff like. Celebrity Traitors is. I always thought it's going to do really well. It's so popular. It's on that sort of upward trajectory of popularity. And then when I knew the celebrities that were doing it, and I thought, wow, there's some absolutely huge names in there. And let's be honest, for the celebrities, it's like, it's not. They're not having to eat bugs in a jungle. But it's like 8 or 9 days of playing a sort of psychologically interesting and fun game that I think probably everyone here would really enjoy playing for 8 or 9 days, especially if they were paid like the celebrities. I think it's great to have these shared cultural moments, and sometimes there's a lot of negative news, and that seems to be all the shared moments, like doom and gloom and disaster. But these are actually moments that bring us together, that are happy and positive, and remind us that people are essentially good at the end of the day, no matter where they're from, who they are.
And what about the experiences? Because the Traitors Live experience, is that all is that something that you guys planned for as well?
No,
or is that separate?
That's just that's the rights. So we do a Race Across the World experience as well. We own the rights. When somebody approaches us and says, "Oh, I make these sort of things. Can we?
Yeah.
Would you be interested in? There's a commercial transaction there, so it's good in that respect. But it also sort of snowballs to that whole sort of cultural impact and significance. It's really great. It's a good time for us as a company.
Yeah, amazing. Well, speaking of, what do you think is next? There's been a lot of there's a lot of possibilities where factual TV could go. So we're looking at maybe Shark Celebrity Infested Waters, which again is kind of it's a bit of a natural history and a bit of a reality. We've got some cross-platform things like Beast Games, and I'm sorry, some of my students in here, I had to make you watch it. I'm really sorry. And then we've got some vertical documentaries and things. And then, of course, we have EA and ChatGPT, which I had to put in there. Sorry, Boris. Where do you think it's going to go?
Well, for me personally, in what I do, there's definitely a swing towards, because the shows that we make are actually big risks for platforms and channels, and they're expensive. And as Michael said earlier, everyone's risk averse. I think there's a bit of a movement towards pre-existing IP. So think about board games, computer games, film franchises. We made a sort of a reality version of Squid Game. The second season just dropped this week. So I think things that people already have a prior relationship with will, seem to be something that a lot of people are after. And having made the Squid Game, quite a few people have come to us and said, "Oh, can you make this board game or that board game as a reality show?" And sometimes you're like, "Oh, that's great." Sometimes you're like, "No, I don't know if that's going to work." But so there's definitely a move towards that. I think the other trend we'll see off the back of Celebrity Traitors, a show that I really admire on Amazon called Last One Laughing, which was made in 2 days. So they booked all those amazing comedians, Bob Mortimer and whatnot. And they shot it in 2 days and got all those episodes out of it. I think there'll be, and Traitors similarly was 8 or 9 days of Celebrities' time. I think there'll be a lot more of what can we do with people who are famous or celebrities in a short amount of time that will have maximum impact. So I think if you hate celebrity programming, which my mum does, you're probably in for a rough couple of years.
Yeah. What do you think, Michael?
I'm.
What would you like to see happen?
Just trends that I'm seeing sort of online of the dating shows and things like that. I think Pop the Balloon is a really interesting story of how that sort of transitioned from being online to
I don't know it. Can you tell me?
TV. So it's like a dating show where they a load of people have a balloon and one person walks in and it's like they're being matched up, and if they're feeling the other person, then they don't pop the balloon, and if they're not feeling the other person, then they pop the balloon. Quite a simple, basic format, but it's really it's quite engaging and quite funny and entertaining, and you'll see clips of it going viral all the time. I feel like we're going to see more things that live on YouTube, but then will transition into stuff that becomes popular on sort of more mainstream TV channels. I feel like we're definitely going to see more of that in the future.
Yeah, what about that? YouTube and broadcasters are now collaborating, and I guess also a bigger trend for international co-productions as well. What do you guys think?
Yeah, definitely more international casts. I think will be, especially for bigger, expensive shows, will be. We tried to do it in the first series of Squid Game, have quite a big international cast, but I think Netflix in the end for the second season wanted to make it more American. But so yeah, I think as that top end gets more expensive, people will look for solutions like that. There's a thing also that is called hubbing. Do you know what hubs are? So you get production hubs. So I'm a Celebrity, for example, has made a hub in Australia, and so that makes that show sort of cost efficient for smaller territories. It's all there. It's plug and play. They turn up with their cast, and they can just sort of make it for affordable amounts, especially smaller countries that have broadcasters with less money. So I think more hubs will be used for that sort of larger scale. The Traitors Castle in many ways is a hub because we make the American version there as well as we make the British version there, and then and I know there are other hubs in Europe. So I think that's definitely sort of an amortization of costs that can be shared by lots of countries across the world.
Yeah. Is there anything that's on that you guys haven't made yourselves that you really, really wish you had made? That you're just like, oh, come on, just give me that one.
I still love The Apprentice. To me,
that's a good one.
It's the one show I sit down. One show that's similar to stuff that I make. I sit down to watch. I absolutely love it. The cast are ridiculous. The chances are ridiculous. Alan's ridiculous. It's made with so much polish. I just love it.
I mean, something in more recent times, you know, my guilty pleasure is definitely maths, Married at First Sight. I mean, I don't know why, you know, I was dead against it for a long time, and then I watched one episode and I just got hooked in, and yeah, definitely maths is amazing. It's great.
I know we're going to open this up to the audience in just a sec, but I'm a huge fan of dance, and I just wanted to ask you about Dance 100.
Yeah.
Is it coming back?
It's not coming back. I had that idea for ages, and I loved it, and it almost popped on Netflix. And I think if it had a bit more money, and maybe I would have loved to do it. I really wanted to do it actually with celebrities at first, like being choreographers, because I thought then the audience could sort of attach themselves to those characters a bit better. But I don't think it's coming back, sadly. But I think the format has returned to us, so. If there's any broadcasters here, we'd love to make it.
Oh, come on. Hopefully when this goes live, pick up and get it out there and get it made.